Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the Real Collective Podcast Remote Edition. At the cottage again this week. Kyle is in his basement, so we are just living it up in the summertime. It's too cold, and so we both have sweaters on. The not that you're here for a weather announcement, but it is not as blazing hot as it has been in the past. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think might like this kind of conversation. You can also download us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Download the information
Buyer
below.
seller guides.
There it is, buyer seller guides. I'm on cottage mode, man. You can also book an appointment in the calendar links below. Kyle, you might have to carry this one. I am slow. I'm on cottage mode.
Oh
Mode.
yeah, on island time. That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Need some Bob Marley playing in the background. We'll be
no
okay.
pressure, no problem. Three little birdies are rocking it over here.
No lover, no cry. It's all good.
That's it. So we were going to talk a little bit today about power of sales and what it means to have a power of sale. What that essentially is when the bank says, "Yeah, you know what? I'm going to sell your house. You're not paying me. I'm not happy about what's going on. And so I have the right as the mortgage holder on the property to exercise my power to sell your house." And that's what that's all about. We've seen a few more of them than we have in the past, just with everything that's going on. And there's a lot of talk about people, the fear that people will be defaulting on their mortgages. So and obviously this is your how to work with it. It might be my wheelhouse, but knowing what the banks are looking at is maybe more on your wheelhouse. But you're saying that
Yeah.
it's not as likely here in Ottawa as it might be in other places.
Yeah. I think it's still yet to come. But I really like it. I don't treat this subject differently than I do anything else. And saying that Ottawa is one thing, and our news comes from other places.
Yeah.
So, unless you've got local data, and as much as we're going to be a part of the national data, I really want people to, if you're getting a headline, you need to take a step back and drill down into where that information is coming from. I follow a guy on Twitter or X, whatever, Ron Butler from Butler Mortgages, big player in our space, been in the mortgage game forever and a day. Even jokes about it himself of how old he is and what he does. And most of his tweets are doom and gloom. But if when you read, and I'm not saying it's not happening, but when you read them, it's GTA, GVA, GTA, GVA, GTA, GVA is where it is. There's some mention of other pockets, right? But it's all that centered. And I think a lot of that has to do with just pure price point. Like, like when I still can't wrap my head around the amount of money people have to make to live in the GTA and the GVA. Like when every single mortgage is over a million, like when you start at a mortgage of over $1 million, not purchase price, that's even higher. But you have to be making $300,000 to $400,000 a year to kind of get that to work, right, on a consistent basis. And if there's no doctors, there's not enough doctors anyway. They can't all be living in the GTA, right? And there's only 35 Maple Leafs, so they can't all be living there either. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, they are, but that's it.
you
So
got 35
it's
bucks too.
yeah, 35, yeah, 35, 25, 35 Canucks, yeah. But it's like so we have to really refocus on where things are at. Is it going to happen here? Yeah, it will happen here. Will you get to say we're seeing more of them? Of course, because when the bar was here and now it's here, there's more. How much more? How bad is it? It's gonna wait to see. But I think the discussion that we'll go through today is more like is kind of deciphering when this stuff happens and busting a myth or two about what people need to worry about, because I think that gets confused as well.
Right. No, that makes sense. So yeah, I guess what we've found is that we are seeing a few more of them, like in our practice, and from like the brokerage level. we had a meeting about it at the, sort of at our office meeting. We talked a little bit about it. I've seen one in my whole career, and it was recently within the last 2 or 3 years. I just want to be clear: a power of sale happens when you don't make your mortgage payments, right? So that's the first thing. You also want to talk about the idea that, hey, if you're upside down where you owe more money on your property than what it's actually worth, that's not going to force a power of sale. Power of sale is only going to happen if you are not making your payments, right? So if you bought at the peak of COVID and you paid 800 grand for your place, and in reality it's only worth 700 right now, just keep making your payments. You'll be okay. Yeah, it sucks. It'll come back up. You'll pay it down. You'll find yourself a happy medium. And if you don't, by the time you have to refinance, then you'll have to refinance. Hopefully by then you'll have, you'll be closer to that 20% mark if you only put 5%. I mean, though, I think the people in the worst case scenarios are going to have put 5% down on a large mortgage chunk, and the value was 8, went to 6, is now 7, right? Or was a million, went down to 750, is now I don't know, 850, 900. But you've paid down a bunch of money because your interest rate was so low, right? So on your $800,000 house, if you put 5% down, you would owe, what's that, 40 grand. So you would owe 860, or no, sorry, 760 minus however much you pay over the last 5 years. So what do you pay over 5 years at 2%, right? A lot of that money is going to principal. So now instead of owing 760 at the beginning of 5 years, you owe what, 730, 720, and it's reappraised at 7. It's not so bad. It's not great, but it's not so bad. Anyways, the idea here, I'm
Yeah,
going,
that
so
the
go.
was going to say that the big difference people have to realize is to some, and maybe reiterating what you just said, but you don't make your payments. That's one problem. If your mortgage is higher than your house is worth, that's a different problem, but they don't intersect
Yeah,
until you stop making payments,
exactly. Yeah,
right? That's the thing. The people that are underwater, so again, just to be clear on that, have a mortgage that's higher than their house is currently worth. The bank isn't sitting there, right, with a little ticker going, okay, 123 Main Street owes us 8, but it's now worth 750. Gotcha. Right? Like that's not their business, right? They don't want to be landlords. They don't want to be, a business that owns the real estate. They own the lien against the real estate, but they don't want to manage the real estate. It's expensive to take a house back, very expensive.
yeah,
So they don't want to do it. So if you can keep paying them, right, they're most likely going to let you stay. They're not even going to talk to you about value. People who are renewing, right, rarely in our current situation and current rules, rarely do they ever even get reassessed for their ability to keep paying. It's just assumed you can because you haven't missed.
yeah,
So they're not checking credit again. They're not asking for your employment again. They're not doing anything. They're just saying, so what term do you want?
right.
Where those people are going to get in trouble is when they want to move or if they need to move. That's your new problem, right? So that's the thing. And I mean, I had a similar conversation with a lady this year who we helped, but she was like, "Man, I should probably just sell this place and like get out." She is a mom, 4 kids plus her mother living with her, and I was like, "Where are you going to go for cheaper?
Right.
Where 6 are you going to live for less than what we're getting you?" I know it's tight. I completely respect that and see that, but where are you going to get cheaper? You're not. So you might as well hold on to the asset and fight just as hard as you would to pay the same rent somewhere else.
Yeah,
And then if it shit really hits the fan and but the market shifts, good or bad, you've still got some asset there that you can take with you,
yeah,
right? So that's that. Foreclosures, power of sales, it's a different problem for people in a different struggle, which is I can't make the payments.
right.
And I'd also venture, I think we were talking about it offline a bit too, was I'd love to see the data as these mortgages start, as these happen, to see how many are big six bank or just, let's say, regular institutions and private. Because one thing we've seen on the private side is that lenders are way less willing to go to higher loan to values they're clawing back their loan to value. We're only going to give you 75% of the value, 60% of the value. Um, and they're not renewing. So they have the, as all lenders do, but typically, right, or generally speaking, private lenders want their money to churn.
Mm,
So they want it out of whatever investment so they can go do another one.
yeah.
And when they look at values and them coming down, they're the ones who go like, ugh, huh, we don't want that. So they'll call the loan and say, hey, go find somebody else to do this. We don't want to do this. We're not renewing you.
Yeah.
So I think I'd love to see where those foreclosures are coming from, and they can reprice it on renewal, right? They can reprice on renewal to just make it so you just can't afford to do this.
Right.
Like you were at 9, here's 15%. Don't like it, go somewhere else.
Right.
Like
It's like a
so
contract.
that's a different thing.
Yeah, it's like a contractor. Hey, give me a quote on this job. The contractor's like, I'll give you a quote, but I definitely don't want the job, and you just get quoted like double what it should actually cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, looping back around to talk about power of sales, that is where the bank, and like I said, like I think you're right, is the one that I did. I mean, the one that I did was a private mortgage holder, right? It was like four people who were the mortgage holders and one person who was living there. And they said, you know what, we're gonna sell it. And they went through a whole process where the client knew like this was coming, and so they had a whole process where they were getting letters and saying like, hey, we're going to sell your house, we're going to go through the whole process from when they stopped paying to when they actually came in and said, hey, we're going to sell your house, was a year. So that whole process, that's how long it takes to get someone out. And it's sort of like if you're a landlord and you want to get rid of a tenant. So they were sitting, not receiving any money back on this mortgage for a year. And when they call it, they have to follow the same process. Like they've got to get a sheriff out to escort you out of the house. They have to go through this whole process, and they have to say, hey, you didn't make your payment. Hey, here's the next thing. Here's the next thing. So they go through this whole process, the mortgage holder. And I think you're right, is that it is more likely that it's private mortgage holders more so than bigger banks. I think they also take private mortgage holders typically take higher risks and charge higher rates for exactly this reason, right? So they're ideally making up their money somewhere else. But if it's just one time mortgage holder, they might be, this is their only one that they've got, and they're screwed by you not paying, right? And so they say, you know what, we're going to sell the house. Difference is,
Yeah.
they'll go through the process of bringing in their own agent. The agent will likely be associated with the lawyer who's representing the mortgage holders, and that agent might not be. And we've talked about the importance of hiring a local expert. That agent's not going to be a local expert. They're not going to get as much for the house as a local expert could. Obviously, when you're a local expert as a listing agent, you're going to be able to get your client more money than Joe Blow out of Toronto, especially here for Ottawa, right? Who just puts the house up online. The three P's, we've talked about these, right? Put it up on MLS, put a sign in the front lawn, and pray that someone else comes along and sells it. Um, that's what'll happen normally, right? They might even take some pictures. There's an extra bonus P, thrown in there for you. But your local expert's going to be able to price it properly and actively promote it, go and find some potential clients, right? Whereas this other person is just like a, not fly by night, but just an operation that exists only to list properties, not necessarily to sell them. So the one that I went through, the process that I went through when I sold the house, it was coming up to closing, and the lawyer said, "Oh well, here's how much the person owes on the house. Here's how much your agreement is with them. You've got to drop your rate, or else we're not going to close on the property." I'm like, sure, whatever. What do I do to help out my client, right? My client is the person who's in such bad shape that, she's knocking on the door of a power of sale or foreclosure. Those two terms are used pretty much interchangeably. The difference is a power of sale, just to be clear, and we'll wrap up the first half with this. A power of sale means that the bank is exercising, or the mortgage holder is exercising the right to sell the property because you haven't paid. A foreclosure means that the bank has taken over the property, or the mortgage holder has taken over the property, and they are now the owners. They've gone through the process of changing title from the original owner's name into their name. And there's a lot of people who think that this is, oh, hey, here's a great opportunity to go and steal a house. I can get a foreclosure. Get me on a foreclosure list. That's all American stuff. It's not Canadian. People who are doing foreclosures and are doing power of sales in Canada are regulated by OFC, I guess, to get as much money back for the sale of the property when they do, or whoever. I don't know if it's OFC. It might not be, but there are regulations in place that necessitate the sale to happen at the highest possible price. So
I think even the owners of the property, depending on the timing of that, would actually get some could get some money.
yeah,
If they have to sell it for fair market value. My understanding, basic, they have to sell it for fair market value and cover expenses is what they're like. That's their goal. But
yeah,
once they do that,
yeah.
everything above that is supposed to go back to the people who did own it.
That's right. Yeah. If you've got a mortgage for 100, but you're not making your mortgage payments, and they're like, hey, you know what? Forget it. We're not getting our mortgage payments back from you. We're going to sell this property. We don't want this brain damage anymore. Power of sale, unless you find a way to pay us what you owe us and get back to good. Okay, good. Power of sale, they do it. The person doesn't pay. This company sells the house. Um, the people lose the house, which sucks. But this company sells the house, and then all of a sudden, it sells for 600 minus costs. Let's say there's a total after payouts and everything of 550. They owe 100. 100 goes to the bank. 450 goes back to the other people. Right. So that's I mean that's it in a nutshell. We'll see if there's more to talk about in the second half, and if not, maybe we'll shift gears a little bit. You'll have to stick around to find out. Who knows? We're on cottage time. As always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think might be interested. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, thank you very much for your ears. Download the buyer seller guide below and schedule an appointment with Kyle or I in the Calendly links below, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
This episode of the Real Collective Podcast is brought to you by Real Collective Marketing, the marketing agency that specializes in the unique needs and budgets of small to medium-sized businesses. We provide turnkey marketing solutions that get results. We become an extension of your team and act as your virtual marketing department, designing and implementing cost-effective strategies that will help grow your business. You can find out more today at www.realcollectivemarketing.ca. Now, here's your hosts, Sean and Kyle.
Welcome back, you beautiful people, to the second half of the Real Collective Podcast. Keep you on your toes, talking about power of sale. Hopefully that never has to happen to you. And one thing we need to talk about, because it's coming up by the time this launches, it might have already happened, is our prediction for upcoming rate announcement, June 24th. It's about to hit, and as always, before we get into it, like, subscribe, share, download the stuff, and book it a book. Everything you want to. But now Kyle has some insider information, inside trading, some El Predicto.
Predicto.
I think last time we said it, we were wrong because we did it this far in advance. And then after we recorded this, the numbers came out and they're like, oof, yeah, no, we got to drop it. So our lead up time is pretty significant here between today being the 17th and when they announce on the 24th. We got a week. What do you think leading into that announcement?
I think they're gonna come down.
Ooh, another one.
I could see them. You know what? I see the market says that there's a 90% chance that they're going to drop the prime rate. And there's a part of me that says, yeah, because they'll just bend to they'll bend to the market. However, we've seen this happen already throughout this process, where even though some of the inflation numbers have come down, they stick it out. And honestly, there's a method to that, of sticking it out and forcing it to come down even more, right? Because if they move too quick, although people are going to say, well, they haven't, but every time they do, then we kind of get this rebound of an uptick, right? So if they move too quick, it could work in reverse. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think they'll pander to the market and probably come down. which, you know, hey, I'm on an adjustable rate, so works for me.
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
Uh,
But
how much of this
but
is
I
just
think
wishful thinking? Hey.
that could be, yeah. Inside, yeah, by insider information, you mean what's my opinion and my hope?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll tell you this. We did the rate drop at the beginning of June, and you know, it didn't really have that big of an impact on the market.
It won't. I don't understand. It won't. People are all like, it won't.
But here's the
Sorry.
thing. No, no. What you're saying it won't have an impact on is the payments. But what I expected it to have an impact on was buyer sentiment. But what it did was it just made people say, "Oh, well, shit, if they're you know what? I'm going to wait for them to drop the rates." That's what people have been saying. I'm not going to do anything until they drop the rates. I'm not going to do anything until they drop the rates. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, good. Here we go. Here's a quarter point drop." You know what happened? People were like, "Hmm, yeah, I want them to drop it more." Right. So people were like, oh, as soon as they drop the rates, the buyers are going to start to come out in droves, but they didn't. Now the buyers are like, well, where's the bottom? I'll wait until the bottom. Right. I'll wait until they're done dropping the rates.
Yeah.
So this is what we're seeing is that buyers are continuing to hesitate. And that has a further negative impact on the number of sales, on buyer sentiment, and that has an impact therefore on house prices. Because if people are like, oh, here's what my house is worth, like, no, we're not ready to jump in, we're not buying this house yet, then you know they're not. And then if that's the case, then the house isn't selling. And if the house isn't selling, then it's this whole domino effect of what everything. So I
Yeah,
mean,
everybody wants to be on the race to the bottom.
that's right. Well, they want it. They
Right.
want to be at the bottom. They want to be, hey, I want to
Yeah.
buy the lowest possible rate, right? Which I get because when we're talking about, how much actual principal are you paying down when you're paying 2%? Lots, right? How much principal are you paying down when you're paying 6? Not as much.
Oh, I've seen some wild numbers this week just in my amortization schedules and stuff that I'm doing for people. I'm like, oh yeah. And really, like the math is simple. Once you cross over 4%, especially if you do a 30-year amortization, but even at 25-year, you see that jump of way more principal than interest. It's when mortgages look bad, for sure,
Yeah.
right? And the numbers don't lie to that. You're always going to catch up. You're always moving ahead. It's just your money's just not going as fast. And so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And I think one thing that amazed me too. This is where it could get interesting though, because and where someone can take advantage of this more. And this might be an out there idea for some people, but this is where the conversation, in my opinion, and for my clients, anyways, I'm moving depending on certain factors, but I'm always including a chat about adjustable rate mortgages at this stage
Right.
because people who are waiting for the fixed ones to drop, the fixed are going to be a step, which could take a long time, right? And if you're in no rush, then don't be in a rush. Like that's fine. But if you are trying to get in and want to balance between what we have a lot of people saying, which is once they hit a certain point, everybody's jumping back in and going to make this thing more competitive and rah rah rah.
Yeah.
Then then but you don't want to be involved in that. But you also don't want to be involved in being stuck at 5.5 or more, right? Between 5 and 5.5 for the next 3 to 5 years. An adjustable rate actually is your answer. Like because for a tiny bit of risk, it's actually your answer. Because as the prime rate moves, your payment will drop. If you're on a fixed, and hear me, because I'm amazed at how many people don't understand this, no matter how much we talk about it. No offense to anybody.
But
When you're
yes,
fixed, what's that?
but you're idiots.
Well, I I don't know what part
Keep
the guy did.
watching. Keep
I
watching.
don't know what the guy at the
Learn
bank
more.
didn't tell you, but it's the first thing. When it's fixed, it's literally fixed. If the rate shoot up to 10%, you're still there. If they drop to 0, you're still there. The calls and emails I get from people who are like, when's my rate changing? I'm like, it's not. Why not? Because it's fixed. Yeah, but they dropped it. I'm like, they didn't drop that because that's not how it works again, right? Like you paid for consistency. So when you have that adjustable rate, you'll be able to ride this roller coaster down and be able to adapt to that. And it could be it could be a great time. You're going to pay a little bit more today, no doubt. You're going to pay more today. But when you ride that to the bottom, and then you say that's enough, and then lock that in for free, you've taken advantage of every situation possible.
Now, here's a question. I've heard the term adjustable rate. Is that just a synonym for variable rate?
No, actually. And this is where we, even in our company specifically, but as an industry, you've heard more grumbling about it. We have to be better at deciphering between the two. It's also where the banks get it, because they don't necessarily do that anyway. And what happens is a true variable rate is where the troubles happened in this market with the prime rate changing. Because a true variable rate, you have your payment and it's fixed there. And as the interest rate moves, your payment just becomes a different proportion of principal and interest. And at some point you hit that trigger rate, which was all in the news last year, because at that point your entire payment's purely interest.
Right.
And you're not paying anything, right? That's how you hear of people who get, 90-year amortizations, and they're going to have to put down 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand at maturity. Or they're going to get re-amortized to 30 and watch their payment go, up $1,000 or something. That's going to happen, by the way. That's not exaggerating. That will happen in the next 2 years.
And that's a
lot of people.
Variable rate.
That's a variable rate.
So
when you're there, so what you have to do with an adjustable rate, what happens is you have the prime rate at the bank with a discount, typically. So prime minus something. For simplicity, it's prime minus one.
Sure.
So that's what I have. So when the prime rate rose, my payment rose with it. That sucked. Yeah. When the prime rate drops, my payment drops with it. So that's the adjustable, that's the variable. And you need to ask your lender what you're getting, because they're not the same. Scotia has an adjustable, TD has a variable, RBC has a variable, right? Most of the non-bank lenders only have adjustables. So that's where you really have to understand that, because you could be locking yourself into something you don't like. I will say this, one more thing.
There you go.
In a decreasing rate market, those variables are still good products, because what it also allows you to do is leave your payment where it is. So now as the prime rate drops, more and more and more of that payment, even though it's too high, is going towards principal.
Right.
So there's an advantage when it goes down. When it goes up, it hurts.
Got it. So variable rate, your payment stays the same. Adjustable rate, your payment changes as it does.
Rule of thumb.
Yeah, variable rate, you get hooped if the people who have had variables for the last 5 years as the interest rates went up and they were making the same payments, they are going to owe way more money on their house. Got it. That's good. I didn't know the difference between the two. So thanks for doing that. I'll give you my prediction.
It's what I do.
I don't think the rate's going to change on the 24th, and I'll tell you why. I'm doubling down on my idea that I had earlier this year, where I said, look, the rates are going to go down once this summer. It's going to go down a quarter point. I don't know if it's going to be June or July, but that's the only drop we're going to see. We already saw the drop. I don't think we're going to see it in June. That's my prediction. Yours is that it will. I'll take the opposite. Bet you $1 and reconvene in a week, and we'll see who wins.
I think they'll pander to the market, but as much as they say that, would it surprise me if they left it the same? Nope, not at all. Not at all.
What am I going by? Nothing. Just doubling down on my previous belief. Mine is backed by nothing other than my desire to be correct. So
sometimes that's enough.
And it might do it. It might not. Who knows? We'll see in a week's time. I hope it does. I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're right. Just for everybody. I hope that, the faster we get there, the better off we'll be. But I still think that we have, a 12 to 18 month horizon before we start to see mortgage rates that are in line with what people are hoping that they're going to be. So. And
I think would be an interesting experiment to do as a broker. And I might just do this for fun, because I'm a nerd like that. But yeah. It's just it's the fact that, I harp on it all the time, right? A 5 or 10 basis point swing does not make a mortgage be great, right? At the end of the day, it's from a payment standpoint. So it would be super interesting to see, what someone's threshold was. Is it 25 basis points? Is it 50 basis points? Whatever. Say, okay, if it takes 18 months to get to that drop, and you're like, okay, I'm in now, right? Versus the person who bought today and took today's rate and paid down their mortgage for 18 months. I'd love to see where the balances end up. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to see where they're starting.
Yeah.
And see how close they get. Because now again, there's a bunch of variables in there like purchase price and how much down payment and whatnot. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because like that's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take a long time to do this.
Let me help you with your math. When you're running this, I will say make your average price 650, because that's the average price in Ottawa right now. I just did the halfway through the year market update. So if you haven't watched it on the channel, feel free to pop over. Maybe if someone knows how to post things places, they can put it right here. Or right here, or over on Kyle's side. So you can use 650 as the average. For the middle of summer, you can use 3% growth for per year into next year. So 3% per year will take you to whatever 3% on 650 is. I think that's conservative. It might be more like 5, but 3 seems like a good solid bet. And it'll be different every time of year. But if you use 650 and you do the summer and you do 12 months and 18 months, I think you should be okay.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Might have to do that.
Huh.
Post that. I'll post that up on my socials and see what it is. Because like I said, I mean that's what you're waiting for.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Everybody wants the rates to go down and the prices to go down. They are not going to go down in the same rate. And I think you have to see a significant drop. And I mean, significant being like a percent to really start to, in my opinion, anyways, to see it, right? To feel it.
Yeah. All right, well, run it through. I'm excited to see it. As always, guys, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who you like, or maybe someone who you don't like because we made fun of you this time. You can also download the whole episode on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're watching us on YouTube, thanks very much for listening to the birds chirping and the chainsaw going. Couple lots
It's very
down.
calming.
It
It's very
is.
calming podcast.
I'm telling you, man, it's a calming place to be here up at the cottage. You can also download the buyer seller guides below, or book an appointment with Kyle or I directly into our Calendly links. I am doing appointments while here at the cottage, so if you would like to talk about your real estate needs, buying or selling, by all means, I'm happy to jump on a Zoom call with you here, working remotely as always. And until next time, keep it real.
Collective.